At Dark982, question for Mr. Coulter. What is your take on why the NHI do not just reveal themselves? Do you agree with the idea that there is an agreement for delayed or complete non-disclosure? Because if true, I would find that to be somewhat confusing behaviour on behalf of the NHI. I also think that if they were waiting for us to be ready, that maybe we wouldn't be seeing them in our skies, or maybe at all. Thanks for the work you do and hoping to hear your thoughts. Okay, Mr. Dark. I think there's a really interesting explanation that I'm beginning to hypothesize. This is only a speculative hypothesis on my part, but it is based on work that I am doing that is increasingly focusing on what I believe is a consciousness connection to the UAP phenomenon. I do think that there is a link between what we call psychic phenomena, telepathy, or psionics, as is the more neutral term that's used by the military and the defence community. I do believe that there is a connection between human psionic abilities, telepathic, psychic abilities, and consciousness, and that the UAP phenomenon is tied into that. And I suspect this is one of the largest reasons for why this is being kept secret and for why the NHI are not overtly showing themselves. And my growing hypothesis, it's just a hypothesis because there's a few things I can't tell you right now that I'm going to be reporting on in coming weeks, and I'm very excited to be bringing you that story. But I do know that the Air Force has been working on psionics for many, many decades. They never stopped investigating the power of the human mind and consciousness ever since the Stargate program and the remote viewing program. I know it's been poo-pooed. I know there's a George Clooney movie based on John Ronson's book called The Men Who Stare at Goats. And I know all the supposed debunkers say it's BS. But I can tell you, it's not BS. I've seen it for myself, and it's real. And in forthcoming weeks, you will see why I say it's real. And I believe the United States Air Force has knowingly deceived Congress, successive presidents, and the American public and the world about what it knows for far too long. It's time for this story to be told. Now, coming back to the question from Mr. Dark, I think the NHI are showing themselves in our skies to twig our consciousness, to make us humans aware of capabilities that many of us don't even realise we have. And I've seen those capabilities demonstrated in recent months. I know they're real, and I frankly don't give a flying fig what the debunkers or the skeptics or the trolls would say about that. It's real, and they will soon be eating humble pie. The capacity for the human mind to engage externally with some kind of uber consciousness has been speculated about in science. Go and have a look at the work on microtubules. Let's have a look at what modern science is speculating about a quantum connection between the human brain and an external consciousness. That's where we're going in this. So what if UAPs are merely a manifestation of something that is above and around us, a consciousness? Some might call it God. Yeah, I know, this is heavy stuff. But what if the purpose of its engagement with the human race is to slowly twig our awareness and to encourage us to use abilities that we don't even know we have? I'm very interested in hearing from people who were part of the GATE program 20 to 30 years ago, who found themselves in rooms with US Air Force officers and strange psychologists in white lab coats, showing them on occasion strange, apparently non-human objects. Yes, this has been happening. Young kids, prepubertal kids, have been misused in experimentation by our military in experiments designed to develop an understanding of how to engage with the phenomenon, with a consciousness. And I think at the same time that NHI consciousness is trying to engage with humanity individually. I've spoken to so many people. I had a message this morning from one person who's an very senior US Air Force person working in a very sensitive area, who told me that they had psychical abilities and they'd never spoken about it. But when they told me about their sighting of a gigantic craft, I said to them, by any chance, do you have psychic abilities? Have you ever had an intuition or a precognition? And they said they were very moved by my question because they'd never really spoken about it, but yes, they have. And everybody I talk to tells me about intuition, precognition, some kind of second sight, some kind of insight that gives them an ability to understand or engage with things in a way that humans can't quite understand. And I think that's what lies behind our understanding, or our growing understanding of the phenomenon. I think that if these are craft, if they are craft at all, they are a manifestation of a consciousness that is trying to engage with humanity. And I think, interestingly enough, the evidence that I am acquiring suggests that these craft can only be operated by people with those psionic abilities. Watch this space. More to come on this. Now, the other question from Mr. Dark was, are there agreements, and are those agreements perhaps constraining why and what we can be told? Now, that's a good question. As you know, if you were a watcher of the interview I did with David Grush back in June 2023, David Grush, to a very limited extent, referred into what he was allowed to reveal through his DOPSA, his Defence Office Pre-Publication Security Review. He referred to unspecified agreements. Now, I've been investigating that, and I do believe it's possible, plausible, I haven't confirmed it, that sections of the US military concluded agreements with a non-human intelligence. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if there was an agreement of non-disclosure, perhaps some kind of Star Trek-like prime directive where the NHI didn't want humanity informed. Wouldn't be surprised at all if that was the case. I haven't had it explicitly said to me, but I have had multiple sources refer to agreements. Okay, so let's just examine that. Firstly, if such an agreement was made, how could it possibly be legal? How could the whole planet be bound by an agreement that a bunch of jumped-up, hubristic, arrogant men in the 1950s or the 1940s concluded with a non-human intelligence? Why would they have any right to make a decision on humanity's behalf? And moreover, if the Congress and certain presidents were not properly informed, as I am confident they were not, and in complete breach of Article 1 of the US Constitution, then those officers of the US Air Force are in serious breach of their oath to the US Constitution, which is an act of treason. Treason. That's what we're talking about here. So if these people are aware that people like myself and others are on their tail, and that disclosure is imminent, that Congress is now getting close, if I was you guys, I would be thinking very seriously about coming forward, because you are going to face treason charges if your government doesn't decide to exonerate you or put you before a Truth and Reconciliation Commission where you are given immunity in return for telling the truth. You face the very grave probability of criminal charges. And yes, I do think there are people who should be going to jail as a result of what I've learned about the legacy program. Experimentation on children, murder, intimidation, bullying, threats. Not a good look, guys.
È facile comprendere cosa ha ostacolato le ricerche in questi anni. Nessuna strumentazione, niente apparati di controllo. Niente. Però anche ora si avverte che c'è energia.
La permanenza qui va limitata, c'è una specie di campo di forza. Dopo 6 minuti la testa inizia a far male, 20 minuti al massimo e c'è emorragia cerebrale.
Non solleverà mai questo apparecchio senza un motore.
Non l'abbiamo trovato, il motore.
Erano 5 i motori. Sono morti nel 47. Hanno poteri mentali inimmaginabili e hanno la capacità di penetrare nella mente di un uomo e di fornirgli immagini. E questo richiede più energia che guidare una nave tra le stelle. È la forza del pensiero la fonte di energia che i suoi scienziati non hanno trovato.
Lei che suggerisce, dottore? Di aspettare un altro schianto?
È un'opzione.
Me ne dica un'altra.
Trovare altri con poteri mentali inimmaginabili.
State facendo un grande servizio al vostro paese. Ve ne saremo riconoscenti.
«20 minuti, dobbiamo farle uscire».
Aspettiamo 5 minuti.
Signore, moriranno.
Sono morte quando hanno messo piede nella base.
Mostraba estos objetos de esa manera. Y el fenómeno, quizá la forma más pura del fenómeno, sea la luz. Una luz que justamente cada vez se va apareciendo cada vez más, porque hoy no son los casos que teníamos en los 70 o en los 80, donde eran naves de tuerca y tornillo que bajaban con la escalerita y bajaban los seres, estaban ahí recogiendo con una palita cosas. Hoy aparecen fenómenos lumínicos. Es como que el fenómeno cada vez se va arrimando más a su esencia más pura, que es el fenómeno lumínico. ¿Qué
Sí.
es lo que no sabemos? Pero sí sabemos que la psiquis y la cultura co-crea con ese algo de naturaleza desconocida, ese algo que es inteligente, una inteligencia no humana, que co-crea la manifestación ovni, que también lo co-crea de manera material. Vale cuando hablaba también de en Trinity, en la parte final, hablaba de que en realidad ingeniería inversa es muy difícil de hacer porque la mayoría de los objetos son objetos huecos. Es como que no tienen aparato de dónde agarrarse para decir de que hay un motor, de que hay una nave que tiene que ver con la propulsión, pero no se sabe, porque tiene más que ver con una cuestión mucho más, si se quiere, de información que se da con un determinado mensaje o con una determinada dirección. Pero ese así, ese lugar siempre estuvo vinculado con el tema de la conciencia, desde siempre. ¿Por
Desde
qué? Porque
siempre.
es simplemente
Bueno, entonces
estudiar la historia del fenómeno ovni, nada más.
la relación de la tecnología y la conciencia es prácticamente una obviedad en algún punto.
There's also a cosmic board. Is it the same as what people are talking about nowadays as the Federation? No, it's not. Different. What would I liken it to? Not quite a government system, but they're there to talk with you, to also help you and others. And they're from multi-dimensions. And it's hard to wrap one's head around that. I totally get that. I was surprised as well, but nothing shocked me. It's like, oh yeah, I know all this. Oh yeah, I know this all from this side, because when we incarnate, everything's wiped clean. Some of them were just pure light.
In human form, or like in a form, or like just like a ball of light?
Like a ball of light. A ball of light that would kind of change colors from pinks to whites to maybe very, very pale blues. Others, I could actually see their faces, really. Some of them had a white cloak. There was one specifically that it was blue, a blue cloak. When you're there, you know that they're from other galaxies, other dimensions. And they all come together. They're extremely wise. Some of them, I guess, we would call them like maybe they look like ETs, Yep, definitely. I would definitely say that, but I can't say that I could really see the face of every single one of them. I could not. It was a long table, and they were all sitting around it, and that area was illuminated. But anything around that was black.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't know exactly where we were for that.
Come procedono le ricerche del quinto occupante dell'astronave?
Con poca fortuna, signore.
Le farà piacere sapere che ce n'era un altro vivo, per quel poco che ne è rimasto. Gli scienziati hanno scoperto che hanno strane capacità.
Quali capacità?
Non limitate le ricerche agli omini grigi, estendetele ad individui più umani.
La prego, mi aiuti. Grazie di avermi fatto entrare.
Si riposi.
Ma chi è? Quell'uomo chi è?
È un forestiero, tesoro, sta male.
Quanto resterà nella mia camera?
Non lo so, finché non starà meglio.
Mamma, che cosa hai fatto al naso?
Full interview with Jake Barber and Ross Coulthart has dropped on News Nation, and there's some gangbuster stuff in there and some very alarming stuff confirming some of Michael Herrera's information that psionic assets are used to lure in and then shoot down UFOs.
How often was it done where the objects would land on their own accord, and how often was it done that weapons would be used?
Yeah, I can't tell you how often. I can tell you that they are brought down both ways, that they are invited to land by the psionics team. Other times they are invited in by the psionics team, but then HPMs, which are high-powered microwave weapons, are deployed, and they have an effect where they can disrupt the flight pattern of the object, and when it is an object, sometimes it's not, and it can result in that aircraft being forcibly brought down.
What precisely we might be shooting down and what sort of consciousnesses we might actually be violently interacting with.
They, in a very spiritual nature, something like angels, angels and demons.
That's what the psionic people were interacting with, which was spiritual entities. What they perceived as spiritual entities, they would describe them as angels and demons. So very interesting. Jake says he's only had positive experiences, and he dealt with this loving, feminine entity of some sort. There may have been the consciousness piloting the 8-gong craft. And by the way, he says there's more than one 8-gong. He also talks about the similarities between the 8-gong and the craft that Michael Herrera saw in Indonesia, which is really interesting because Mike is under the impression that that was a man-made object. It was certainly human operated, if nothing else, and very possibly man-made. I think Mike was talking about seeing the rivets on this thing, and it seemed very man-made. So if that's something similar to what Jake saw, why was there a, as he puts it, a goddess-like entity inhabiting it, and that was the consciousness, powering this vehicle? And it's so weird. The UFOs are so weird because even though many of these objects seem to be alive in and of themselves, there's a consciousness inhabiting them, they still require often a pilot, an outside consciousness to direct them. It's so strange. And I've heard some experiencers explain this because many experiencers have actually piloted the UFOs themselves.
Come si sente?
Molto meglio. Che cos'è?
La colazione.
Grazie. Magari tra un minuto.
Il bagno è in fondo al corridoio. C'è un asciugamano e camicia e pantaloni di mio marito prima che ingrassasse. Se vuole se li può tenere.
Molto gentile. Suo marito non apprezza la sua gentilezza. E non vede la sua tristezza. Ma a lei non interessa più. Credo abbia ragione. Certe cose non vanno condivise con persone aride.
Cosa le è capitato?
Ho avuto un incidente.
Sì, certo. Che genere di incidente?
In un campo.
Ha una fattoria qui intorno?
No. Mi hanno dato un passaggio. Cosa c'è?
Niente, mi sono svegliata col mal di testa. Credevo che passasse. Mi diceva del suo incidente?
Non mi sento molto di parlare adesso. Le dispiace se riposo ancora un po'?
Ma certo, ha ragione, scusi. Lascio qui il vassoio, così quando si sveglia, se le viene fame, mangia.
Es muy interesante cuando en el desconocimiento de qué es, si le pongamos tecnología. El hecho de que pensemos que hay, esto es otro momento duro para mí declararlo, pero estoy convencido por muchos motivos que me asiste para pensar que es así. Que en realidad no ha habido casi nada de ingeniería reversa. Lo que ha habido es ingeniería inspirativa, ¿sí? Ingeniería inspirada en aquello que no sé cómo funciona, y con largos años, ¿sí? De ingenieros, con de las mentes más brillantes que te puedas imaginar, con presupuestos total y absolutamente libres, sin un costo de presupuesto durante décadas. La tecnología que podemos haber desarrollado como seres humanos es realmente inimaginable para nosotros en este preciso instante de nuestra historia.
Se n'è andato, vero?
Sì.
A casa?
Sì, a casa.
Sono arrivato tardi. Peccato.